Yo, I want to talk about anything else. I don't like this set and I'm not the only one. In fact, as I said in the thumbnail, everyone hates Aetherdrift. But what specifically do I mean by that? Because I'm not talking about hating it in general, or everyone hating every aspect of the game. For me, for instance, it's nice to see Armankit again. I'm a big fan of that. But even with that inclusion, I still hate this set and have put off talking about it for as long as possible. This is the first time ever since I've been playing that Magic has put out a full standard legal expansion that I don't even want to think about. And to you, yeah, specifically you, who's already down in the comments, just shut up then, why complain? If you don't like it, don't buy it. Well buddy, first, do I have a video for you, link in the description, and second, that is what I'm doing. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to play it. I'm not interested. The only way I'm going to open any packs is if they get sent to me for free, but even then that'll be for the channel, for your enjoyment. It will not be for mine, because I'm going to take Watsy's advice. They say, not every product is for you, and you don't have to engage with every set. Okay, I won't. And is that what you want, commenter? To play a lonely game where everyone who's ever criticised anything has been pushed out and told to quit? You want to be the only one left, winning by default because no one else cares to play? The king of nothing? Well, congrats, because I'm not buying any, so I guess you're one step closer to your lonely goal. But to the rest of you, I know a couple of weeks ago I made a noise about how negativity gets views. That's not what I'm doing here. This tone isn't for clicks, these are, as always, my real feelings. And I promise I haven't forgotten my New Year's resolution either. I'm just making an exception for Aetherdrift because it doesn't deserve the positivity. And you may be thinking, well Reg, you can't be right because I don't hate Aetherdrift. But I'm not talking about you individually, I'm talking about everyone, the general consensus. Because while you may not hate the set yourself, at least consciously, I bet you know someone who does. And I'd even go so far as to say that you're not fully thrilled with the set in its entirety either. I'm sure you're aware that overall the consensus on the set leans towards hate. And again, just to clarify here, I'm not talking about hating every aspect of the game, but one specific thing. One issue I can point to and say this is the reason Aetherdrift is bad, and whether they know it or not, this is the reason everyone hates it. This is what needs to be fixed, and I'll even go so far as to say I've got an idea on how they can fix it, even though I know they won't. Apparently they like it like this, because they keep doing it. Before we get to the big one though, let's take a look at some other reasons I've heard people have to hate this set. And I'm going to start with the gameplay, because it's the one argument that people bring up when they try to defend bad sets like this. Even though Magic isn't one game. If you're going to say, well, all that really matters is it's fun to play, I'm going to say, what is? Commander, the most popular format? Because outside of Flavour, the decks this time around seem unrelated to the rest of the set. Do they even count as being part of it if they're basically a separate product? Which I am in favour of, but means I guess I'm not really talking about either of those decks here. Or do you mean the draft environment, where, if you're unfamiliar, play booster boxes have 36 boosters like draft booster displays did, as 2 boxes are exactly enough of 3 8-player drafts, which was said in this article by head designer Mark Rosewater, link in the description. Well, what happened to that? Because Aetherdrift only has 30 play boosters per box. I thought that wasn't enough for draft, that's why you just said you increased it. So now 3 8-player drafts need 3 boxes, or if you prefer, a single draft with a single box will have leftover packs. The numbers don't line up. So is this just a way of making people buy more packs than they need? Because that is 6 more boosters than set boosters displays have right now. I thought the whole reason we did away with set boosters in favour of play boosters was because they were for draft, to be played with, so what's happened here? Or are you just lowering the number of packs to make your expensive boxes seem cheaper in comparison, and if that has a negative effect on the people that draft, oh well, guess they'll just have to deal with it. What about non-draft Aetherdrift Limited? Well, from what I'm hearing, due to all the vehicles in the set, it's luck of the draw when opening packs as to whether your deck will even be able to function, because your vehicles can't crew your other vehicles unless you have enough creatures to crew those initial vehicles to begin with. And if you don't open enough creatures, oh well, guess you're in for a bad time. What about Standard? Which is this set's gateway into every other format. So really, I suppose I'm asking, what effect will Aetherdrift have on Magic as a whole? Well, I know there are some maniacs out there that will defend Powercreep and say it's not a big deal. They're objectively wrong when they say that, but I don't have time to prove it today. I'll add why Powercreep is bad actually to my list of videos to make, but for now you're just going to have to trust me that it is. It really obviously is. But does Aetherdrift even have Powercreep? Well, I feel the answer to that question is best summed up by the Aetherdrift card comparison page on the Magic Wiki, link in the description. And as you can see, it breaks cards down into strictly better, strictly worse, and functional reprints. Let's start at the bottom. There are 2 functional reprints, meaning they have the same mana cost and rules as previously existing cards. Porthole Mole and Spectral Interference are both functional reprints of the previous cards, Eccentric Farmer and Scatter Ray. Obviously a card's real power is often how it interacts or combos with other cards, but a general rule of thumb when eyeballing a set is functional reprints mean similar playstyles, which will most likely mean a similar power level. What about the strictly worst cards? These cards are also functional reprints, except maybe they cost more mana, have additional requirements to play, don't generate as much value, or have some sort of additional downside that wasn't there on the previous version. Pedal to the Metal, for instance, is strictly worse than Lunar Frenzy because Lunar Frenzy also gives the target creature trample, even though it costs the same amount of mana to cast. So by comparison, Pedal to the Metal is strictly worse. And that's it, that's the only card in this category. So in terms of power, Aetherdrift as a set is only slightly weaker than previous sets. Shall we look at the more powerful strictly better cards? And... oh hang on, that doesn't all fit on the screen. There's too many strictly better cards, the list goes on and there's more beneath that. Can we zoom out a bit please? And again. And again. And again. Keep going. Keep going. No, there's still more. Nearly there. Done. There we go, I would break them down, but there's so many strictly better cards that I'd be here all day. I've heard people say they don't see the power creep in the recent sets. This is the power creep. Look how many older cards have just been surpassed. Aetherdrift as a set is just strictly better in terms of power level than the sets that came before it. And if you don't see the issue with that, ask Nardu, he'll tell you from the ban list that chasing power creep never ends well. One of the reasons they wanted to introduce battles to the game is because they said Magic had become too fast, with too many turn 1, 2 and 3 kills. The game was becoming not fun to play, so they attempted to slow it down. Well, where are those attempts now? And how is a 3-mana 5/4 Anthem you can swing in with going to help? Especially in a set with multiple ways to give creatures haste. And while I'll admit that most of those do require you to be max speed, but that's another thing. Can we stop with the additional side game mechanics? I don't want to mark my speed. I don't want to track the time of day. I don't want to be tempted by the ring. I don't want to explore the dungeon. Forget power creep, has complexity creep really gotten so bad that rules need multiple cards just to explain them? I was okay with Monarch, that one was flavourful and fun. It was enough, we should have stopped there because it's all been downhill since. And I'm surprised that more people don't complain about these headache-inducing game states after the backlash mechanics like Eminence and Emblems got for being uninteractable game elements. Because honestly, I don't see the difference. You can't target a dungeon for removal any more than you can target Edgar Markov in the command zone. But I will admit we've started to slip into my personal opinions there. So let's talk about quality. Something I think that lately we can all agree collectively has been crap. And I'm not just talking about bendy, flimsy cardstock that makes you question the authenticity of a card. Or the constant printing errors that we're just expected to accept like we saw most recently in Innistrad Remastered. But now even the bundle dice? Really? If you check out this video on unboxing Aetherdrift by Geek Culture Plays, link in the description, at 238 you can see the spin down that's included in the more expensive Finish Line bundle. The host, Gerald Chan, says, "The printing I feel might be a bit off for some," and then, "If you're very picky about the printing, this might not be for you. But I'll be less polite than that, I'll go one step further, because I think that looks like crap. Magic sure has been finding ways to raise the price lately, and for what exactly? Because it doesn't appear to be for quality products. Less cards per pack, less packs per box, lower grade quality across the board, and prices as high as they've ever been. Nearly £300 for 12 packs of cardboard, have we gone insane?" Another thing I've heard people complain about is the art style, and you know what? I also think the first place foils are gaudy eyesores. The fractured foils are a visual mess. Their non-foil counterparts aren't much better. The Rude Riders are just plain ugly. The revved up cards are kind of lame. And I don't even know what to say about the graffiti giants, what am I looking at? And while it sounds like I'm having a go at the artwork itself, and yes, art is subjective and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that's not the issue with these. Because, you know, Magic cards can look ugly. But these just don't look like Magic cards. This is a full release, not a secret lair, and most of these treatments are available in play boosters. To be played with. An aspect of playability is recognizability and understandability. Gone are the days where you could play a thoughtful game more or less in silence because recognizing the cards without having to pick them up and ask your opponent what it does every bloody time because multiple copies of the same card all look sodding different isn't something you can do anymore. I have a lot of issues with Magic's current standard of art aesthetic, but at least these cards look like Magic cards, not like whatever the hell is going on here, so yeah, I get the complaints. Especially if you're new and don't understand that these are the same game pieces, they just look different for no reason. Speaking of not feeling like Magic, let's talk about the set's story. And I won't bang on because this actually feeds into my larger point, but for those not in the know, here's an example. Aetherdrift Episode 1, The Dashing and the Desperate. I'm going to read you this section because I think it speaks for itself. Let's zoom in. As Spitfire walks into the garage, Chandra and Alar's face is smiling across all of their screens, from different angles even. The various networks can't get enough of her, and how could they? And then, Spitfire frowns, a button on her braces interferes with the tech here. She mutes the screens. "Hey, I was watching that," calls the mechanic. "You've got to give your auntie a warning before you go disturbing her workplace. And you've got to warn me when you adjust my steering," says Spitfire. She leans against the hood of her ride. Okay, there are going to be those of you whose head just spun around hearing how distinctly not magic that all sounded. But you know what? I could defend it. Another complaint people had was with the Flavour, which from what I saw peeked over this card, Transit Mage. Is this where we're at? People asked. Gone are the days of epic knights and warriors, now a Magic the Gathering wizard is just some random bloke with a guitar and glued on horns? Is this the sort of creature we're expected to want to cast as all-powerful planeswalkers? Is this anybody's idea of a fantasy? Yes, I get that this is better representation of what people look like in real life, but is that what we want? This is meant to be escapism, we don't necessarily want to see ourselves in the cards. But you know what? Even though I agree with the criticism, I could defend that too. What about the complaints over the memes and references, which from what I saw peeked over this card, Spiked Shell Harrier? I mean, look at it. It's literally a blue shell from Mario Kart with arms. The flavor text reads, "Target acquired, resolution, imminent impact." This isn't a reference, it just is a blue shell. I'm not saying it's illegal to steal something like this wholesale, stick arms on it and be done, but I am saying it's lazy. Could we maybe not have created something that did the same effect or captured the same idea that isn't literally just a blue shell? No? But again, you know what? I could even defend this, as god-awful as it is. And the reason I could defend these choices is because of what I said near the start. There's one issue I could point to and say this is the reason Aetherdrift is bad. And while the thematically dissonant cards, cheap mimetic references and just dumb story are all also bad, they are the symptom, not the cause. There's a reason Doretti has traded his almost Pope-like attire for slicked back hair and a leather jacket. There's a reason everyone's just decided to abandon their lives and build a Mad Max car to join the wacky races. There's a reason Chandra is doing an Akira slide. It's because she rides a motorbike, guys. And when you ride a motorbike, you do the Akira slide. That's it. That's as much thought has gone into this. Ready Player One was right and cultural references have peaked. There are 6 standard legal Magic the Gathering sets in 2025. That's not including bonus products like Secret Lairs, Commander decks, or even full sets like Innistrad Remastered. And that's not counting arena releases either. And if you're about to say that they're all separate teams, well, as you'll see in a bit, that might not be as true as you think. For perspective though, we had Bloomburrow in August, Duskmourn in September, Alchemy Duskmourn in October, Foundations in November, Pioneer Masters in December, Innistrad Remastered in January, and Aetherdrift in February. Again, not listing all the Secret Lairs coming out in those months too. In his Drive to Work podcast episode Fresh Out of Design Aetherdrift, head designer Mark Rosewater gave insight into the development of the set. Zoom in. I'm going to paraphrase him because he speaks very conversationally. I'll give timestamps where I can if you want to listen yourself. It's very interesting, I'd recommend it. But at 13 seconds he says, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to record a podcast about the set I just turned in, talking completely, fully everything about it. And then, the set in question is Tennis. I don't even know the name of the set yet. It doesn't have a real name yet. This is because even though he's only just published it, this podcast was recorded 2 years ago just after he handed over to the design team what would become Aetherdrift. Then at 1 minute 32, so here's your chance to hear me from 2 years ago talking all about a set, and talking about it in a way that maybe is illuminating to some things about how we made the set that maybe, in the finished product, I don't know, I wouldn't talk about, or I'm not sure." Okay, I certainly am interested in this unvarnished perspective. Sounds to me like he's a little unsure if he should be dishing this dirt, which if so, then illuminating will be right. Do go on. And he does, he speaks about the set's design for about half an hour until 28:28 when he says, "I'm giving you a behind the scenes thing here from 2 years ago. I know I handed over, I think he says Adventurism set, and one of the things that often happens in R&D is, we only have so many resources and other things that pop up. For example, at this time we were consolidating the draft booster and the set booster into a consolidated booster. But I thought the design teams were supposed to be separate. Why would that be a job for anyone working on Aetherdrift? Why would that have any effect on development?" Then at 29:40, "And that work was going on right now, which is a huge amount of work. Meanwhile, some of the sets around it, there was a lot going on, meaning that play design had, because of external issues, there was a lot of responsibility they were under. And so, kinda what they wanted was an easy set, a set that wasn't hard to do." Cool. Cool to hear, the staff had been burnt out and just wanted to phone Aetherdrift in. They didn't want to put any effort into it, and yet collector boosters are nearly £300 a box, good stuff. Then when speaking about Aetherdrift at 3014, this set had been a pushing boundary set by definition. We were supposed to be pushing boundaries. And then at 3050, so anyway, the task we had given ourselves from the very beginning was a more daunting task. And the issue at hand was not that we didn't do what was asked of us, we did exactly what was asked of us. It was just, oh, it's coming to a time where other factors are really pinching play design. So making a set that's sort of like a little more than play design can handle, while in a normal time maybe they could just grab a few extra resources. At the point they're at right now, they don't have the extra resources. Cool, billion-dollar company doesn't have the resources apparently. When did all those people get fired again? Shame they weren't around to help. Oh well, I'm sure the customer will still pay for it anyway. I said last week one of the comparisons I hear when people complain about sets like Aetherdrift is Theros. The argument goes that you complain about design feeling lazy, phoned in and overly reliant on cheap references, but Theros is just Greek myth. Nothing more to it, and people still like that. Aetherdrift is just racing, so if you like one, you should like the other. These are the same, what's the difference? Time. Time is the difference. Theros was given not just 3 sets to build a world and tell a narrative, but those sets were given enough time for players to really appreciate them. Theros came out in September 2013, Born of the Gods not till February 2014, and Journey into Nyx not till May of that same year, imagine that. And those last 2 sets were smaller releases meant to accompany and complement the larger Theros, not replace it. And while I don't know for sure, I suspect all that extra space between releases would have given R&D enough time to not feel pinched by external factors or otherwise. That's why for Aetherdrift, I could defend the writing, I could defend the design choices, and I could defend the references, because just like a Greek myth set worked, a racing set could work, but it doesn't because it's not given enough time, attention or care. The reason there's a blue shell is because they want to demonstrate that the set's like Mario Kart, so they just put in something from Mario Kart. They want to show it's like Wacky Races, so they just put in something that could have been in Wacky Races. The reason Chandra is doing an Akira slide is because it's a cut corner. The design team have to get across motorbike right now and they don't have time to think about it. So what's the first thing that comes to mind? I don't know, Akira, fine, whatever, put it in. The first thought will have to count, the first draft will have to do because the rest of play design are worrying about the consolidation of different boosters apparently. No one's here to think about it and it needs to get done now, so just do it. Chandra does an Akira slide. I said I'm not buying any of this, so surely all these complaints and nitpicks I pointed out about the set don't matter? Because they won't affect me? Surely this set at most should inspire apathy, in not just me but in everyone, and yet it doesn't. I love this game like so many others, and whether conscious or not, the reason Aetherdrift inspires such hatred is because it's yet another thoughtless, rushed, ugly, uninspired example of Hasbro squeezing to death something that we hold dear in the name of quarterly profits. The prices keep going up while the quality of the product keeps going down. And every single one of the things I have talked about today is an example of it. People aren't stupid, they're going to notice, even if only the results of the issue rather than the cause of it, and they'll be right to complain. I hate Aetherdrift, but I don't blame it. I don't blame the designers, authors and artists that worked on it. I don't even blame Mark Rosewater. I blame Hasbro, because Aetherdrift is a monument to the crunch they're subjecting their staff to, their attitude of profits before players, and their willingness to sell you slop at a premium. I said at the start that I knew what the issue was and that I even knew how to fix it. Ironically, for the racing set, the solution is to slow down. Give your products and worlds more care and attention. Give the people that create those things the time and resources they need to do it justice. Give the players a break, let them enjoy something before moving them on to the next thing. Are we at Final Fantasy spoilers already? I hear that's coming. Final Fantasy isn't even the next set, that's Tarkir. Are we being moved on from Tarkir before we've even had a chance to think about it? Jesus wept, let us breathe. But I know they won't slow down, they don't care about the product. Looking at their actions, they obviously just want to put out as much as they can, as quickly as they can. Aetherdrift was one full release. 5 more sets to go this year. Thank Christ they pushed Lorwyn back to 2026. Let's see how many people bother sticking around to play it. Come check out my Patreon if you've enjoyed this content and want to support someone who's making it so they can make more. I suspect there's 5 more videos like this one on the way at some point, and YouTube sucks, I could really use the help. Plus I've got some fun rewards on there, it's worth checking out. And come back next week for a Commander deck tech. I don't want to blow my own horn here, but I've created the single greatest Commander deck of all time. And it isn't even textless. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to everyone that supports me, like Eggboy the particle that permeates all existence, and the rest of my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a positive comment, install an adblock, and most importantly subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you want to see me do a video on another subject, let me know and I will see you next time. See, I've said it in the video now, so that deck tech is coming, even though literally as of time of recording, the buzz is around the new Commander bracket system. I haven't looked at it yet, but if I'm doing a video on that, it's going to have to wait.